Is the vibe gonna be weird that I'm sitting in bed? Is the vibe weird? So welcome home, honey. Yikes. Ignore that I'm holding my mic. I move my hands too much when I do these videos, so this is my solution. So I ghosted my shell for the first time recently. This video's vibes are already atrocious. So I ghosted my shell for the first time recently, and I have some thoughts. So for those of you who are unaware, who have only seen the movie or maybe the anime, the Ghost in the Shell manga is split up into 3 books. There's The Ghost in the Shell, The Ghost in the Shell Human Error Processor, and Ghost in the Shell 2 Man-Machine Interface. So let's get started with book 1. Book 1's probably my favorite. I did have the feeling reading it that I didn't know where it was going. I watched the classic anime after I finished the book. Besides knowing that the anime was acclaimed, I really didn't know anything about this series at all besides it being a cyberpunk story. And I liked the first book, but it does have, I did kind of wonder where it was going. It's very mission of the week for most of it. I had no idea that the Puppet Master was the main driving force of the story until the end of it. And then I went back and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I didn't pick up on that at all. I also do think that book 1 kind of meanders more than the other 2. There's a lot less focus. I know there's doing a lot of world building and kind of just setting the tone and vibe of the series. I also think it's significantly longer than the other 2, but I don't really care to check page counts right now. But it does seem a little more vibe based than the other 2. I will say that book 1 by far, I think, has my favorite art in the series. I'm going to get more into that a little bit later, but I love the art and the style and the vibe. Every panel was super cool. It feels weird to say, but books 1 and 1.5 both do bureaucracy really well. Different departments in the government not talking to each other and the security force not talking to each other. The rivalries, the sort of ingrained distrust, even though they're supposed to be on the same side. I think those parts of the book were done super well. Interesting, kind of frustrating, just all of it. I really actually enjoyed reading. You can kind of tell with how the characters talk to each other or talk to people in other departments. They're short but polite and slightly distrustful. They have this resigned doing this because it's my duty thing, that the section, even though the Section 9 people don't trust the other groups, I guess is what they're called, the other sections. So societal decay and kind of cheap, overt sexualization are classic cyberpunk. And you expect and you kind of want that acknowledged, that not only sex and human bodies, but also just life itself is kind of devalued. But there is a huge difference between the setting sexualizing the characters and the author sexualizing the characters. Book 1 doesn't really have a problem with this. It does have pinups at the beginning of each chapter, but they're tasteful. They're good. They're really beautiful, but they're not fan servicey, I guess. Book 2 is crazy fan servicey. It is 80% panty shots. I swear to God, it's bad. The panty shot to page ratio is 2 to 1. There's 2 crotch shots for every page. It's crazy. I want I like the sort of sex is cheap theme. I like that in cyberpunk, but when it's an author doing it to a character for an audience, it's not really the same as it's not really the same. There's, I think it's in book 1 where they go to meet some guy and he's sitting on his computer and he's got a couple of a doll in cyberpunk, literally just sex robots, and he has them just laying around naked, and you see them on the page, but it's not fan servicey. It's telling about that character and also about the world. There are 2 very different things, I feel like. So this manga has a lot of margin notes for the sound effects, because those are part of the art. They're harder to do, obviously, to translate, but also just notes from the author, and they are a little distracting. I think at the end of book 1 it says don't read the margin notes as you read along the first time, but it's at the end of the book. So I read all the margin notes through book 1, which was distracting. I'm gonna have to clip this in. Some are interesting and add context to the world or the story. On page 33, regarding Batu's lines on page 32, personally, I think things in nature have ghosts. A polytheistic belief, similar to ideas like the Mantu or Shinto, It may be impossible to prove these ghosts exist because of their complexity and physical limitations when they appear as forces or phenomena, of course. There are humans who act more robotically than robots, but one cannot say for certain that a force does not exist simply because one cannot see it or its effects. After all, in ancient times, no one believed that air or space existed. For reference, I should state that not all ghosts are the same in terms of complexity or influence. Like, that's what this page, like, here's the page, there's the margin note, it's referencing this. Like, it's a lot of information, and a lot of words, just compared to what's actually on the page as part of the narrative. Some of these take up an entire page. I'm probably gonna scan some of these pages so they're easier to see. There are very small font margins on all, like top, bottom, and side. There are margins on this page. Like, it is a lot. Some of these, I would say a lot of these are personal perspective. One life is more precious than all the stars in the heavens, or so the saying goes. But it's just a noble sentiment. In reality, a planet is worth far more than even a race of beings, including human. And thinking otherwise is a manifestation of the arrogant attitude we humans have that make us ignore other life forms. I hate the saying. I do have respect for human life, but I'm just trying to say that it's not as important as a whole planet. Like, it's a pretty good insight into the author's feelings and, like, kind of gives context to the story. It is a lot. P138. But some of these are super distracting. But yeah, something like this is kind of distracting. Regarding fleeing the country, I remember seeing the following on the news once. A serial killer sentenced to death in the United States fled to and was captured in Canada, which has no death penalty. In Canada, and the argument erupted as to whether it was constitutional to return the man to the U.S., knowing he would probably be executed. Learning of this, several highly sadistic serial killers, some of whose victims' bodies had not been found, remarked that truly civilized nations don't have the death penalty. I don't know the upshot of that particular case, but clearly civilized nations with great respect for human rights are beloved by criminals so vile that they wouldn't even appear in a comic book. Whatever happened to, quote, crime and punishment? So, like, in general, I think more author insight is better than no author insight. I think I wish I hadn't read them on my first go. So quickly, I'm going to talk about the movie. The 1995 The Ghost in the Shell. Great. It's really fun. I love 90s anime, just stylistically. So the movie is basically like the first chapter and the last couple of chapters of book one. So you don't get a lot of character building. And specifically for Motoko, the major, you lose so much of her not having her characterized more. She already seems like a robot at the start of the story. I mean, she is literally like a robot. But she, like, pre-merging with AI and her post-merging AI, it doesn't feel like a big deal because she was already pretty robotic. Like, in the manga, she's dripping with personality. And it's such a loss that in the movie, she is, like, so stoic and, like, and already has this existential dread. I know it's a movie and you can't put as much in there, but they should have put some. Motoko, I hope I'm saying that right, Motoko. It should be Motoko. So Motoko is, like, bold, smart, funny, and especially in the beginning of book one, goofy. She has, like, there's a lot of banter, and you can tell that the group is, I'm doing it with my hands again. And you can tell that the Section 9 are all, like, kind of, like, they are friends. Like, they're more than just coworkers. So it's disappointing in the movie that she's a shell. Oh my God. Like the title. But I think having a character with this big, bold personality, even if they have existential feelings, is kind of a loss when they go head to head with an AI and they decide, okay, yes, I'll merge with you. Like, it's a bigger deal because their personality is a bigger deal. And the stakes just feel lower in the movie. Because, like, oh, she's going to be really a machine because she's a brain stem in a robot body merged with a robot. But if she was already a machine beforehand, like if she already seemed robotic before, then the stakes for the movie are just so much lower. And the movie, like, the music is great, but I feel in my head I call them vibe sequences, like just the sections of her just like walking around and like setting. They call it Neo Tokyo in this one. I just read Akira. Akira is Neo Tokyo. It's not Tokyo 2. That's Evangelion. Whatever they call this version of Tokyo, like just walking around, and the scenes are just dripping with vibes. But I do wish some of that time was more spent on specifically Motoko's character. The music's good though. The music is good. I have the least to say about book 1.5, Human Error Processor, just because Motoko's not barely in it. It's very mission of the week, like case of the week, cop show sort of deal. Now, and even if I like that less, it does do that format better than book one, I feel. It does the case of the week in a much more, not legible, it's a much more clear, the case of the week format. And I think the best of that is in book 1.5. Now, there are some chapters with Chroma, who is a version of Motoko, or it's a body that she uses. Not 100% clear, but she shows up in the Drive Slave chapters, which I think is just 2. It does help bridge the gap a little bit between books 1 and 2, because if you just went from end of 1 to the start of 2, it would feel pretty jarring, because it feels pretty jarring even with that. So I feel like without book 1.5, it would be kind of a lot. And I would say that like those are the best chapters of 1.5. I'm going to go on a little woke tangent here, so if you can't handle that, there's the door. So Motoko's gender identity and sexuality are kind of talking points in this. I didn't actually realize that until after I read the book and I was doing some research. So Motoko, as I said earlier, she's full Borg. She is, as I said, a brain and a brainstem in a robot. And not only is she just a brain and a brainstem in a robot, she's in a mass-produced robot. Her body is not unique to her. There are other, and I like that they do this in the movie. There are other people using her body just out and about in the world. And this is sort of interesting from a gender identity perspective, because she is literally choosing her body. She is literally choosing a presentation for herself. She is literally choosing what shell her ghost goes into. She's also bisexual. That's just explicit in the text. She has a boyfriend at some point. She's hooking up with 2 girls at some point. She's cool as hell. Her bisexuality is pretty nonchalant. The story doesn't go out of its way to acknowledge it. It doesn't ever says like, oh my God, you're dating women now too, I see. Like, it's just, she's depicted with women. And in a cyberpunk world, I would say that sexuality would seem like such an afterthought, considering like body mods, like robot bodies, augmentations, all this stuff that changes people's exterior. Like sexuality seems like it would be such a non-issue in a cyberpunk setting. Of course, at no point in the story does Motoko question her gender. She's always questioning her personhood, which of course is a big theme in cyberpunk, but also that's not where the distress around her identity comes from. So at the end of book 1, she merges with the Puppet Master AI, and they have to put her in a new shell. And in the book, she's put into an androgynous looking male body. In the movie, they put her into a feminine child's body, which I think they're trying to say different things, even if I prefer them chucking her in a dude's body. I know it's not, at my first, I had a more annoyed reaction to that they put her in a child's body. I think they're trying to do a whole rebirth thing, like she's merged with the AI, she's different, she's not the same person anymore. So you put her in a child's body because it's rebirth. Like, that's the deal. That's the point with that. But at the end of the book, when they put her into a male body, it's kind of more just, I'm beyond this. I'm like it feels like an ascended personhood would be non-gendered anyway. Like a god, I know people assign God a gender, but like, really, what does God have in his pants? How do you know that God the Father is a dad? But as the Motoko, Chroma, the Major, the Puppet Master AI, all the post-merge, the different versions of Motoko all use feminine presenting bodies. Of course, that leads into the fan service that I was complaining about earlier, but still, she does actively choose to continue presenting feminine. Woke section over, we can continue. I don't necessarily have a ton to say about book 2. It does switch to, from what I looked up, they called it, the interview, the translation of the interview called it computer drawing. The art style is significantly different, and I didn't love it. It definitely gives a different vibe, and it kind of works towards the theme because like 90% of this book is in cyberspace and not in real space. So I get that, like, thematically that still works, even if I personally don't like the art style as much. I'm not a fan of the little fellas though. These guys, I don't like them. I don't like them. They're kind of annoying and weird and very what's the word for it? They seem out of place. They seem too smooth. They're too smooth technology instead of rough technology, you know? They're too rounded. Yeah. Think Star Wars Camino architecture versus Cyberpunk 2027 Night City architecture. It's too rounded. I prefer my Cyberpunk gritty. I will say, even though this is a really busy example, the color pages, and there's a lot of color pages in book 2, beautiful. These are so cool. This is, I wouldn't even consider this a spoiler. The ending of book 2 is very metaphysical, is I guess how I would describe it. And honestly, by the time book 2 was a pretty quick read for me. By the time I got to it, I was kind of ready to be done with it. I just didn't enjoy 2 as much as 1 or even 1.5. And I feel like I don't have the context for the things the ending of book 2 is referencing. We do see that there are multiple Motokos and some greater conspiracy to help humanity ascend, but it's just not for me. And that's not, I don't think it's bad. I just think it's not the kind of story I am as interested in. So there's no real, like, that's really where the negative feelings come from. Not so much that it's bad. And it's partially because I legit probably just didn't get it. But overall, I think the Ghost in the Shell manga is pretty good. Hot take, this might be good manga. Disclaimer, at the time I read this, I had read 1.5 manga series before. I had read Berserk, and I read half of Claymore, and I got bored. I'm reading more, though. I'm reading more. Book 1's great. Book 1.5 and 2, I could kind of take it or leave it. I know that they actually still make, they're making newer, or have made and are making newer anime series for Ghost in the Shell. And I'm kind of iffy on if I want to check those out or not. There's a lot of stuff I want to watch and read and learn. So it's not really high on my list, but maybe at some point. I'm not going to give it a rating because I'm not an authority, and that's for Goodreads. Oh, and also from what I've read online, the reviews of specifically all 3 of these stories together in one book are kind of mixed, which makes sense because my feelings about them are kind of mixed. So, yeah, I'm not unique or clever or have anything insightful to say. And I just tricked you into watching this video. But thanks anyway. Bye.